What's up guys, Brian Levy from 8 Steps Forensics, and in Module 4 we're going to be talking about the body of your speech. And so I stated before that you have 3 reasons to why your answer is true. But then in the point itself, there's this thing called substructure that allows you to structure the point. So you start with your tag. Your tag is either 1, 2, or 3, and it's the name of your point. So in the introduction, we saw that how my first point was working with local municipalities. So that would be your tag. Then you have an on top. The on top is like a mini AGD for each point that kind of grabs the attention of the audience and the judge every time you begin a point. And then this is where it gets a little more complicated in what's called the substructure. The ASA point of each point is the status quo. So you're explaining the status quo of the issue. In the previous housing market speech, the local municipalities, I would source something talking about how local municipalities can work with federal governments in order to improve the housing market. Then the BISA point is why the tag is true in relation to the answer. So in the BISA point, I have to use the status quo to prove why my working with local municipalities is going to revitalize the housing market. And then the CISA point is by far the most important. It's the impact of the point. You have to have a claim, a warrant, and an impact. The ASA point is your claim, the BISA point is your warrant, and your CISA point is going to impact everything. You're going to explain why this point has such a large positive or negative impact and why we should do it or avoid it. Ultimately, this substructure is going to allow you to have more specificity within your reasons, and it's going to allow the judge to understand what you're trying to say. Stay tuned for an example of what a point looks like in the upcoming module. In 2013, the city of Boston saw the highest level of homeless populations ever. Reaching over 1,000 people, they knew they needed to address the problem quickly. Unfortunately, the disconnect between the federal government and the local government of Boston was unable to solve the problem. Yet this is the first step the federal government can take in order to revitalize the housing market, and it's work with local municipalities. Alan Mallard explains in his study, The Urban Challenge, that the disconnect between the local government and the federal government is often what's causing these issues. Because the federal government tries to institute blanket policies on each city, they're often not as effective as they hope they would be. The article points out the difference between the city of Boston and Detroit. In Boston, they need higher urban development and more spending towards infrastructure, while in Detroit, they need more spending towards their auto market industry. Inherently, by helping Detroit through their auto market, they can help the housing market and the standard of living of thousands. Yet, if the federal government can give this power to local municipalities, they make the solution that much more efficient. As the Brookings Institution explains in December of 2015, if the federal government and local municipalities can institute effective policy, it would create more affordable housing units, better quality housing, and increase racial and social economic diversity. And after a couple of years of this cooperation, could help lift thousands out of poverty and target those that are on the streets without a place to live. This cooperation will not only help increase revenue towards the states and towards the federal government, but help those who don't have somewhere to live.